Hello and welcome back to the Cricket District show on the Cricket District Network. Today we're discussing all things T20 World Cup with the group stage now complete. We head into the Super 8s. Absolutely buzzing for this one. Jack Meacher alongside me and of course Nikhil Uttamchandani over in the Caribbean. How are you, buddy?
All good, man. Really enjoying the World Cup. Group stages were exciting to an extent. And now I think the Super 8s are going to be crazy. When you look at the groups, I think they're very competitive. So looking forward to it. And looking forward to having you guys over as well.
No, we can't wait. Before we get stuck into it, let's just give a quick overview of the Super 8s so far. Nikhil, if you could, explain how this format works and talk us through the teams who have qualified.
Yeah, basically in the Super 8s, there will be two groups of teams. Each group will have 4 teams. And you play each other. So you play the other teams in the groups. And the top 2 teams from each group go on to the semi-finals. So you need 4 teams to progress from the Super 8s. Now, I think where people have been confused is with the seeding. So before the tournament, teams like the West Indies, New Zealand, who didn't make it, were given pre-seed. So the West Indies, for example, were given C2, which is in their Group C. New Zealand were given C1. But just an example, New Zealand obviously didn't get through to the Super 8s. So the teams that did get through that were not in that pre-seeding list then replaced them. So Afghanistan are now C1 in that group, and the West Indies stay in C2. So I know it's been quite confusing for people, but I hope that sort of serves as an explanation. And what happens then once you're pre-seeded and you still stick into your seeding, you then go into that group that you've been assigned to prior to the tournament. So Group 1, you have India, Australia, Bangladesh, Afghanistan. And in Group 2, you have the West Indies, South Africa, England, and the USA. So tough group for those teams. But as you can see, the teams that were in the same group are now separated.
That makes sense. Thank you, Nikhil. We've been discussing it a lot, like trying to work it out, because in my mind, Super 8s, I was like, oh, top 2 of all 4 groups. That makes a nice little tournament, semis, quarters, finals. But
no, mate, that would be too simple. This is cricket. We've got to confuse things even more. Let's talk about the group stage then. Nikhil, who have been some of your standout performances and some of the games you've covered? We'd love to know what your experience has been like so far.
Yeah, I've had the privilege of doing actually 2 England games here in Antigua, 3 actually, because I did the one in Barbados as well. Look, I think it's been quite fascinating when you tie in the rain and you tie in how England almost didn't get through. That game where they were playing Namibia, one washout would have sent them home. And it was really, you really thought at one point it was pouring. Like, you really didn't think we would have any cricket. It was pouring. And every time they would go to pull off the covers, another rain shower would come, and then the sun would be back out. It was like that for the entire day. And I think somebody said they were like 46 minutes away from being abandoned. And imagine, like, England would have been on the plane home. So it just tells you, like, sometimes the margins in cricket can be so small. And then fast forward 4 hours later, Scotland versus Australia. Scotland just need to win to get to the Super 8s. And they had Australia in all sorts of trouble, scored 180. Australia needed like 89 off the last 7. I was kind of confused as to like what they were doing, but in the end they got home and England have been saved. But really, they just got unlucky, England, with the rain. Like the Barbados game, they would have backed themselves to win against Scotland, and then rain again in the Namibia game. So luckily they're through. But yeah, I think it's been a really good experience to see the World Cup up close. I've been impressed with the crowds here in Antigua. For games like Namibia, Oman, where you expect less following of these associate nations, there were still a lot of people coming to the games, which is really fun.
Yeah, we were watching it on Saturday, like you say, with the rain coming down in that England game. Everyone, I think, turned with a notification saying, heavy rain, play toss delayed. We were like, oh no, it's going to happen. Yeah. But like you say, very luckily, got the game on. That is, you can't get much closer for England to qualify. It's literally, like I say, 46 minutes away.
Yeah, but it's a pretty brutal schedule as well. I mean, I'm just thinking about New Zealand, right? Their first couple of games, Afghanistan and the West Indies, they're in and out of this tournament in a flash. I mean, the scheduling is pretty tough. And if you get a difficult first game, like England did against Scotland, all of a sudden your chances are thrown out the window. So they'll be pretty relieved. And then if they can get momentum now, looks like they've got a bit with their batting, in particular their bowling and fielding. They've been so dominant the last couple of games. You'd expect them to go into this Super 8 stage feeling really confident. On that note, I'd love to know, both of you, who you're backing to make it through to the semi-finals. Nikhil, what are you saying?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Listen, before the tournament, I picked South Africa. Remember with you guys, I picked South Africa to be in that final. So I'm going to go West Indies, South Africa from that group, and from the other one, Australia, India. That one is a lot simpler. But to leave out England, Listen, and when I look at, for example, England are playing West Indies in St. Lucia, which I think is the quickest pitch in the Caribbean. We saw it last night, 2 nights ago, sorry, in that Australia game. I wouldn't want to face Jofra and Wood. I wouldn't want to give a belter to Phil Salt, Joss Butler, Jacks, potentially Bairstow. Those pitches suit England a lot more compared to what they've had in Barbados, for example, or even here when there was a little rain around. So West Indies are going to really have to come good. They haven't played anywhere close to their best cricket yet, but I'm still backing them as the home team. I expect them to get over the line. I expect them to get to the semis.
The fastest spell of bowling I've ever seen was Mark Wood at St. Lucia in a test match there. Absolutely rapid.
I remember exactly which one you mean. Yeah, that was 2021, I think. That was so quick. I remember that.
Yeah, absolutely rapid. So he'll be excited to get back there. I'm sure Jofra will as well. Jack, what do you think?
I agree with you, Nikhil. That first group, Australia, India. I would like to see an Afghanistan upset. Like, it'd be great for the game. And I've loved watching them so far in this competition, but I can't see it happening really.
Can you not? I mean, Scotland played pretty well and had Australia looking not on the ropes, but it wasn't a surefire result there. But then who knows whether that was Australia just playing a bit too relaxed because they wanted to knock England out. Who knows?
Yeah, I've got to stick with my original mainstream predictions and say India won't be beaten. But that Australia side, like you said, with Scotland getting off to such a good start, Afghanistan, if Gurbaz goes big straight away, and then they're playing, where are they playing? Spinning pitches or not really?
India, I think they're playing in Barbados, that one. And Barbados can be on the slower side and it can be really slow. So
with Afghanistan spinners, it could be bogging Australia.
And it'd be great to have a bit
down.
on those games. Obviously, Australia playing India and South Africa playing the West Indies. We're going to be in Antigua for that game. It'd be really exciting to see a bit of a shootout for the semi-finals.
Group 2 is tough though.
Yeah, I mean they're both tough. Obviously, it's Super 8. You know, it's going to be.
You have to be the best.
But I mean. Yeah, but for the sake of the tournament, I mean, we were talking last week about how strong this Afghanistan side are, and if there's one format where there can be an upset, whether it be an upset or not, I mean, they're such a strong side, but it is T20 cricket.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, guys, that game is in St. Vincent, Australia, Afghanistan, and St. Vincent has had the most degrees of spin of all the venues in the tournament. So, who knows?
There we are. It's happening.
It's happening. Well, we can't wait. We're obviously heading out this Thursday. We're absolutely buzzing. We're going to be seeing you there. I'm pretty sure we land mid-afternoon on the 20th, and then we go straight to a game. So, yeah, really excited for that.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And the 23rd as well, we have got a big day planned because there's a game in the evening. Can't remember who's exactly playing, but in the morning we're doing a beach cricket tournament.
That game in the evening is also a massive game. West Indies, South Africa, 8:30 at night. That could literally decide the semi-finals.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, talk about a dream day as a cricket fan. We're playing beach cricket in the morning in Antigua, and then in the evening we're going to go watch West Indies, South Africa at St Vivian Richards Stadium. Pretty good day out.
Yeah, it's going to be a cracking day. Now, Nikhil, question for you. You've worked a lot alongside the US cricket team, and you know a lot of the players, and you've seen them rise through the ranks. How brilliant is it to see them in the Super 8s of a T20 World Cup, a home T20 World Cup as well?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it's unbelievable. Not many would have expected them to be here. When you look at the disparity in what the associate nations get financially, resources, compared to some of the full members, especially like a Pakistan, where they have such a huge selection to pick from, you would never expect things like this. But what it tells you is that cricket, and this is why I love cricket, man, especially T20 cricket, it is so unpredictable. And if you don't turn up on that day, literally everything can go south for you and everything can go the wrong direction. And that USA-Pakistan game, I mean, they would obviously be inexperienced against opposition like that, but to hold your nerve in a super over and get over the line. I thought when they got to the super over, they were in trouble because you don't have a lot of experience of being in those high-pressure moments. But Aaron Jones and his team, they really held their nerve well in that game. And I think what they've done really well in this tournament is just do the smaller things that teams tend to overlook, and that's running between the wickets. I think they've been the best team running between the wickets, the catching, the intensity in the field, and then they just believed in themselves, man. And that's been, I think, the key thing. Like, they've actually believed that they could get to the Super 8's point. And who knows? Listen, I'm not saying that they're going to get to the semi-finals, but last year at the World Cup qualifiers in Zimbabwe, they almost beat West Indies, and here they're going to play them again. So it's not going to be, they're not going to just be a walkover, because if you take them lightly, you could easily be defeated. That's just the nature of the tournament.
Nicola, I want to ask you as well, as a West Indies fan. Obviously, I know you can't be biased on ICC commentary and that kind of thing. But is there confidence around this West Indies team, and is there excitement in the Caribbean, particularly with the Super 8s all moving towards the Caribbean and then obviously the final in Barbados? Are there talk of this West Indies team potentially winning it, or is no one getting carried away?
No. There's a lot of hype around them for sure. In terms of when you go around to the Caribbean islands, and credit to the ICC and Cricket West Indies because they've done a lot to brand it. They've done a lot to build that anticipation. So in terms of the event itself, I think there's a lot of buzz around it. People want to go to the cricket. People are trying to go and see West Indies, especially like Trinidad. The other night was sold out. We'll see how St. Lucia is tonight when they play Afghanistan. But I just think, as much as I want to say, they're favourites to win, it's not going to be easy. And watching them play these last couple of matches, I don't think they've found their best batting form as yet, and that's going to be critical. And when you play teams like Australia, India, even England, South Africa, you have to be at your best. So I think from that perspective, I'm a bit wary as to if they can win the tournament, because you're going to have to beat 4 world-class teams if you want to get to the World Cup final and then win it. So I'm a bit wary, and I think they're behind probably in Australia, probably in India, and maybe even in England at this point. But I have no doubts that they can find another gear and go up another level. But in terms of the hype around them, yeah, for sure. People in the Caribbean believe that they can definitely win this home World Cup.
Can I also just ask you one more question from a commentator's perspective? A lot of cricket fans around the world will have seen the crazy scorelines in the IPL. So many scores, 200 plus. And all of a sudden they're turning on the World Cup and they're seeing low-scoring thrillers. For your casual fan, that's pretty confusing, myself included. Could you just talk us through why that might be?
Yeah, I love it, to be honest. Now, again, the pitches in the Caribbean is really the reason, but it's quite tough to score around. It's quite tough. Sometimes you have slow outfields that we had in New York. And when I say the pitches are tough, a lot of them had that sort of variable bounce. So balls that you would expect. So let's say for the new cricket fan, if you face a shorter delivery in India, for example, you expect it to come about head height. You expect it to sort of be fast and rush onto you. In the Caribbean, sometimes that same length delivery can come here or it can come at your waist. And it's so hard to predict where the trajectory of that ball is going to go. So that's why it makes batting sometimes a lot tougher. What I like, though, is some of the places like St. Lucia or Guyana, where the bounce, you can trust it. So the bounce has still been consistent. However, the ball has done a lot because they've had that green grass on it. And that even in itself makes it a whole different challenge. So it's not so easy for batting where you can just swing hard and get to 220, get to 230 every game. You really have to work for your runs. And I think what the tougher pitches have done, is bring the associate teams into the game. So Australia played Oman at Kensington Oval, and Oman really had them on the ropes for a lot of the game. Now, probably on a flatter pitch, they would have had no chance. But because there was something in it for them, they really did challenge Australia. And that's what I kind of like about this tournament. You really have to earn your position into this Super 8s and then into the playoffs.
I love it. The games have been more balanced, and actually from a fan's perspective, it's great to watch a bit more of a battle between bat and ball. Before this tournament, everyone was saying, what are your predictions for the World Cup? And all of the responses are, we're going to see the world record for highest innings. We're going to see these massive 200, 250 plus scores. And actually, it's almost like the cricketing gods have looked down at the IPL and thought, enough's enough, guys. Come on, let's give a bit more power back to the bowlers. And it's so good to see. But that being said, we are yet to see any of these massive names like Henrik Larsson, for example, really take off in this tournament, and perhaps that's where the Super 8s, we're going to see a bit more of it.
I just think it's interesting talking about pitches from a casual cricket fan's perspective. Like, if you're a clubby on a Saturday playing, you don't really, for me personally, I don't really understand that much about how much a pitch makes a difference.
Well, clearly not. Didn't you get a shocker on Saturday?
Terrible wicket on Saturday. But I even speak to Nicola about that. Like, the consideration about how much a pitch can change a game.
Yeah.
Never really think about it until tournaments like this.
Yeah, that's what makes cricket such a great sport. There are so many nuances. The pitch, the weather, the wind, all of these kinds of conditions come into play. Nikhil, what was your question?
Yeah, you guys have seen a lot of this World Cup. There's been a lot of debate around the 20 teams at this World Cup. So because you've had the associate nations and some of them playing in a World Cup for the first time, you've had some one-sided results. What do you guys think? Did you like the format of having the 20 teams and having more inclusivity, or would you have rather see like a 12-team World Cup with the best?
I think definitely a 20-team World Cup. And this is obviously, we're going to see these major heavy defeats, particularly against sides like Uganda, because this really is their first time they've been tested against the caliber of serious cricketing nations. So it was always going to be the case, but I love it. I love seeing more associate nations. I love seeing heroes of associate nations being celebrated. I love watching David Visa walk off the field after everything he's done for Namibian cricket and get, shake the hands of Mark Wood and Jofra Archer as he walks off and be appreciated for what an icon he is in Namibian cricket. And it's great to see those players get elevated to that status. I think I would have liked to have seen a few more of those associate nations make it through. Obviously, Nepal will be disappointed for their display against, I think, South Africa it was, where they lost a nail biter where the guy just didn't even run his bat in after all the hard work to get to a close result. And I think Namibia as well, they'll be disappointed they haven't made it further. But yeah, great to see so many more nations playing, and hopefully long may it continue.
The more the merrier, in my opinion. Just giving these teams an output. Yes, there might be a couple of one-sided results, but you don't know until you try, and there could be an upset, and then the whole world's got their eyes on it, and it's all positive.
And I'm sure there are millions of people who had no idea that Uganda even had a cricket team until now. So that awareness of the potential of the growth of the game, if you support it in these nations and give them the access they deserve, and the platform that they've earned, it can only be a good thing for the game. Yeah,
definitely. You mentioned briefly about David Visa. Nikhil, I've been absolutely loving your content from the whole tournament, and I saw you got a very nice interview with him after the game. What was it like chatting to him? Such like an iconic player in T20 cricket. Do you know what his next kind of steps are?
He's playing franchise cricket. He's coming to the Caribbean. He's coming to the Caribbean in August, September for CPL. Playing for St. Lucia, the franchise, with Klassen, Darren Sammy's head coach, Faf, Johnson Charles. So happy to have him back. But in terms of the servant he's been to the Namibia cricket especially, I think he's carried them on his back for now the third World Cup. And I think he has the most runs for them at T20 World Cups, the most wickets for them at T20 World Cups. It's just, obviously it's sad to see someone that's been around for so long. You just remember him playing for South Africa, then going over to Namibia and still excelling. I'm sure he would have inspired so many in Namibia to play the game. I'm sure what he's done to put Namibia on the map is massive. And credit to him, because people think, and with a lot of these players who have come from another international team, they only play the World Cups, they only play the big games. But David Visa plays League Two. Anytime he's available and not playing franchise cricket, he's playing for Namibia, no matter what the level is. And I respect that. I really appreciate giving back to them. And I think he's done all that he can. And he said it in the interview that he believes it's time now to find new talent or to step away to allow others to shine. So it'll be interesting to see how they react, losing and having such a big deficiency and a hole that he will leave. But definitely, what a storied career, man. What a legacy he has built in associate cricket.
It's what emerging nations and associate nations need, though. They need these stalwarts who play as much as they possibly can, who take their experience from franchise cricket and bring it back to international cricket. I was even thinking the other day about some of the legends who have played for Ireland, who have kind of taken them to as far as they possibly can, and then they've stepped back. I remember Ed Joyce, who played for Sussex, and then I think he played their first test match and then retired from international duty. And these emerging nations, they need these players who give everything to the game, help it grow as much as they can, and then they step aside for youngsters to come through. And I think David Visa is such a great example of that.
Did you all see yesterday Joe Burns playing for Italy in his first game, got 100 in the European qualifiers?
I mean, that's such a great example of someone who's taken his talents and taken it to an emerging nation. I saw they absolutely smashed it, and he got 100. And I think they won their qualifier. Yes, there are only 2 spots available, I think, for the next T20 World Cup from Europe. But Italy are they're one step closer. I think they got pretty close last time when they played against Scotland and Ireland, but they should have another chance to do that if they make it through the next qualifier. There are so many qualifying events for these tournaments, and actually that's worth noting, is that to get to the T20 World Cup, you do have to have played a lot of T20 cricket and beaten a lot of teams. So whilst Uganda are a small nation and people would have wondered why on earth are they playing at the World Cup, they have had to go through the process of several qualifiers in Africa to make it.
I think what's important to know about qualification as well, the USA, when they qualify for the Super 8s, is not only a place here, they've also qualified directly for the 2026 T20 World Cup, whereas teams like New Zealand, Pakistan have to qualify. And yes, you expect New Zealand to brush aside PNG and stuff, but you never know with those qualifying tournaments. So Sri Lanka would have had to as well, but they're obviously hosts, so they will directly qualify. But yeah, New Zealand, Pakistan qualifying for a T20 World Cup. When would you have ever thought that?
Only until recently, when West Indies had to try and qualify for the 50 of World Cup
and didn't qualify,
failed to do so.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, 8 teams successfully qualified for the Super 8 stage of the tournament. It's been an action-packed group stage so far, and we're just so excited to get out there and actually watch some of the action in person. Feeling very, very lucky to be heading out to Antigua.
And we see you there, Nikhil. Absolutely buzzing to get over to the T20 World Cup on Thursday.
Can't wait, guys. Guys, subscribe.
Listen to the main man out in the Caribbean. If you enjoyed this episode of the Cricket District Show, feel free to drop it a like, subscribe to the Cricket District Network, wherever you get your podcasts, and of course on YouTube. And we will see you next time.